I asked Stu for a big favor. I said earlier this year when I had this idea that I thought it would be really amazing if we here in this community would get together and tackle a project together as a group that would just elevate us in a huge way, to get us thinking so much bigger for what is possible, for what we can do together and what we can do individually. I had this idea that we together could build a school in Africa. And that to me was one of the things that has gotten me most excited about this year, to make that why bigger, to get to that top of the pyramid, that legacy, that impact. And so Stu and I had conversations. I told Stu, I said, I'm going to build a school. I want to build a school. And I want to do it with this group. I want us to do it together for anyone who wants to be part of this. And I said, but I need your help, because I really want to do something amazing to make it just such a no-brainer for people to get involved in this project. And I said, so Stu, would you be open to doing, instead of charging my audience, instead of charging us $10,000 a ticket to attend one of your 2-day workshops, which is what he charges to do a 2-day workshop, $10,000. I said, what if we made it free for anybody who would be interested in participating in this project to build a school? And Stu said, yeah. And I said, awesome, I've got him. And I said, okay, so since you're going to be here for this 2-day workshop that we're running together, I said, you also know you have to be here for the elite retreat, the 3 days leading up to it, right? Because you need to develop a relationship with the people who are going to be contributing to the school so they can get to know you and to help you deliver a better 2-day event. So you also need to come for the 3 days before the workshop that you're running. And he said, well, okay. And then I said, okay, and since you're going to be here for these 3 days, I said, you also have to do a session, because it would be unprecedented for a guest to come and not deliver a session. And he said, okay, what am I going to teach? I said, do a launch debrief. You just did a segmented launch. I said, Todd is going to deliver his. I'm going to teach how we did ours. And this theme of evolution, the evolution of ask, the evolution of product launches, I think this fits in perfectly. And he said, awesome, this is great. And then last night he said, well, do I need to do a PowerPoint for this? And I said, well, you saw Charles' presentation. And I said, use your judgment. What do you think? And so Stu was gracious enough not only to lead the 2-day workshop the days following this, but he's been awesome to share the launch, his debrief for the launch that he just embarked on, which is the launch for his Tribe membership program. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce the man himself, Mr. Stu McLaren.
So I want you to think about a moment in time when you have been moved emotionally. Could be perhaps when you met your partner, significant partner. Could have been that first kiss. Could have been a time when you watched a movie and were inspired. Read a quote and were moved. Could have been when you saw somebody that you cared about being bullied and you were moved enough to stand up for them. But I want you to think about that moment, and I want you to think about what caused you to take action in that moment. When I went on the first date with my now wife, I had a game plan. I'm not the best looking guy. Despite what you see here, I am not the most physical guy. Not the smartest, not the funniest. But I thought, if I could create a first date that was so mind-blowing, like above and beyond anything that she's ever experienced, my backup game plan was that she would go and tell all of her girlfriends And so even if Amy didn't want to date me, one of them would. And so I thought about, like, how could I make this experience so moving? And what ended up happening was that we went on this very creative date. Exact thing that I was planning. She went back and she told all her girlfriends about this date. It was above and beyond anything that any other guy that she or any of her girlfriends had ever experienced before. And the social proof kicked in. They were just like, this guy sounds amazing. This guy, and so in her mind, now like I'm being built up to be like this awesome dude, when we all know the reality of the situation, I'm just an average guy. But she was so moved through that experience that we ended up dating. And then 7 years later, I finally convinced her that I was the man of her dreams, and we were married. And so I think about these moments when we move people emotionally and the actions that people are willing to take. And the other night when I was here at the resort, I flipped on the TV and I saw Braveheart was on. And so if we can dim the lights, I just want to show you this speech here.
William Wallace.
Can't be. Not tall enough.
The Almighty says this must be a fashionable fight. It's drawn the finest people. Where is thy salute?
For presenting yourselves on this battlefield, I give you thanks.
This is our army. To join it, you give homage.
I give homage to Scotland. And if this is your army, why does it go?
We didn't come here to fight for them.
Oh, the English are too many.
Sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace.
William Wallace is 7 feet tall.
Yes, I've heard. He kills men by the hundred. And if he were here, he'd consume the English with fireballs from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse. I am William Wallace. And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight?
Right? Against that? No! We will run!
And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
I mean, yes, this is fictional. Yes, it was scripted. But just go back to this point in time. Imagine being on a field like that. This is how these men fought. Imagine being on a field like that, looking across, being completely outnumbered, knowing that there's a very high probability you're going to die. And then put yourself on the other side of that fence. The William Wallace. He's got to convince these men, despite those odds, to move forward and fight. Is that a logical explanation? Is that one of those, listen, guys, if you can get to the other side, we'll knock all these guys down, we'll kill all these guys. If you do that and you're still standing, there's a bonus in it for you. In fact, I'll double the bonus if you're one of the first 3 to get to the other side. Is that it's not logic. What's driving that? Emotion, right? Those men are moved. Like when I first saw that, I had like goosebumps on my arms. And so what I want to show you here in the launch of Tribe was that we today have it easy. We're just trying to convince people of the value of what we provide. But so often, we're always coming from a left brain logical argument. What I want to show you in the debrief of Tribe is that there is some intentional strategy behind tapping into emotion and moving people in such a way that they feel compelled to buy your product. And this really comes from, well, I'll get to that in a second. Okay, I'm going to share 3 things with you. Number 1, I'm going to share the 5-part big picture strategy that created a groundswell of momentum for our whole launch. I'll share with you the number 1 needle mover that was subtly laced throughout the entire launch, and we'll get to some stats, results, and absolute geekery. Okay, so the 5-part strategy. It all started with a philosophy. And there were 2 parts to this philosophy. Philosophy number 1 was this: the longer the runway, the bigger the takeoff. Here's the advantage that I had going into this. I started planting the seeds for Tribe way out in front, and I'll share with you exactly what we did in a minute. But long story short, I had this runway, and I got this result. For a brand new market, for a brand new product, when I'm literally unknown in the market. Like, people in the know, but for the 99.9% of the people, I'm a complete unknown. What most people do when they're launching is they have very short runway, and they get very mediocre results. So one of the philosophies that I had going into this was that the longer the runway, the bigger the result. The second philosophy was that selling is easy when you connect at the heart. But we don't like going there. We're marketers. We're salespeople. We're business owners. We want to sell. We want to appeal to the logic. But what I will share with you, and I'll show you in the debrief, is that when you appeal to the heart, selling becomes easy. Now, there are 2 types of people, I believe, 2 types of business owners, or 2 ways to approach this. There's the person over here. This is Ryan to a T. Okay?
Uh-oh, this is the column B. This is like the not good one.
No, this is good. You guys, this is good. Most business owners are going to be in this category. And I call this the scientist. Okay? This is where, like, when the panel is up here and everyone's sharing tactics, we're all writing those down, right? All specific tactics. That's the scientist. The other one is what I would call the artist. These are the people that produce great work. They take great pride in the creation of what they're doing. There's a lot of meaning, a lot of significance behind what they're doing, but they don't know how to sell it. And the magic for you and I is this zone. When we can do our launches, when we can sell our products, and we're incorporating both of those, that's when we get what we have into the masses. We move people emotionally, we appeal to them logically, and it makes selling effortless. So let me show you how this was done with Tribe. You guys with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a 5-part strategy. Phase 1 was to create awareness of Stu. Nobody knew who I was. I was a nobody. I've been behind the scenes. And so I needed to create awareness of who I was. So we started this phase mid-May, and we did it by releasing a series of videos that all appealed to things like values, beliefs, things that connect with people right at the heart. Because my thought is, if you and I have a great conversation and we talk and we find out we got a lot in common, and I've got an adopted son. We adopted him from South Africa. So Charles, you and I, when we first met when we got here, and I found out you're from South Africa, and I'm like, oh, no way. And so we started talking about it. And I spent 7 weeks in South Africa last year, and we talk about where you're from and where we were and all that kind of stuff. We're connected, right? There's no logic there. We're connected on a heart-to-heart level. So this whole phase was like designing videos that would connect with people at a heart-to-heart level. And so we released a whole bunch of videos. They talked about like this video here is one of my favorites. This one was called Hustle. And I'm a firm believer in taking the complete opposite stance of somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk is like, you got to work your face off 15 hours a day. I'm of the opposite belief in that we design a business to serve our lifestyle. There's not a right or a wrong. It's just a belief. This one here, this one was about money. For a long time, I had a screwed up belief about money. It impacted my ability to grow my business because I felt guilty about making money. I grew up in a really small rural town, corn on one side, cows on the other. All of the people that I went to school with literally took over their family farms. That's what the majority of them did. And so in my early 20s, when I started making great money, I felt guilty about it. And on a subconscious level, I started sabotaging my own success. I wouldn't follow up with clients. I was dropping the ball. All these things started happening that were happening on a subconscious level because I knew if I got past a certain threshold of what I was making, everything would just begin to crumble. And it wasn't until my wife took me to Kenya for the first time. We were looking to build our very first school. And I'll never forget that experience. It was in just imagine a wide open field out in the middle of nowhere. There is nothing. There's no roads, there's no water, there's no infrastructure, there's no electricity, there's nothing. Except for these mud huts where this community has been planted. And so we were looking to build a school in this community, and I'm trying to figure out what it's going to cost. So I'm talking to the chairman of this community. And I said to him, I'm asking him a bunch of questions about stuff, and then I asked the question, I said, how much would it cost to fund the salary of a teacher each month? And he thought about it, and he's like, it would be about $100 a month. And then all of a sudden, this connection in my mind. Because at the time, I had a software company called Wishlist Member. And we were, a single site license of Wishlist Member was $100. And I thought to myself, well, wait, if I make one more sale a month, and I just dedicate the proceeds from that to fund the salary of a teacher, now that teacher's going to be able to teach 60 to 70 kids. That's amazing. I was like, well, holy what if I just make a whole bunch more money and I contribute a whole bunch? Just think of the impact I could have then. That was the switch for me. Because then it was like I gave myself permission to make a lot more money. Because it took, in my mind, money from being something that was, I felt guilty, and it now became something that was very honorable. And so I talked about that in that video. And that video was watched and viewed over 186,000 times. And so these were the types of videos in this phase 2. They all appeal to values, beliefs, philosophy. We don't share that enough as business owners, but our audiences are craving it. Phase 2, awareness of membership sites. So I wanted to flood the marketplace with material that created a huge awareness of membership sites in particular. And so this was from July to mid-August. And the way I did it was I just started releasing a boatload of case studies. Now, here's how I approach this. Ryan talked about doing case studies for different segments of your market. I do something similar. On the left-hand side of a page, I list all the objections that somebody would have as it relates to membership sites. No time, no money, I don't want to be caught on a content treadmill, no list, no audience, like all the objections. I just list them all. Then on the right-hand side, I listed case study stories. These are clients of mine that I have been working with over the last year. Many of the stories, or not many of them, some of them weren't even clients. They were just stories of friends who I knew had successful membership sites and had done well with membership sites. Because I'm not selling in these case studies. That's a real important point. I'm not selling in these case studies, but what I am doing is I'm always coming back to the same conclusion. And the same common element in all of these case studies is that they all had a
Membership site.
Membership site. So I don't have to draw that conclusion for people. They're drawing it for themselves. But the whole point of it, some were highly produced, some were with my iPhone. This one with Russell was in the back of a van as we were driving back to Nairobi. We did that on Facebook Live. Like, they were all different quality in terms of the production. But they all told a story, and they all came back to the same conclusion of they all had a membership site. Phase 3 was now to create awareness of tribe. So this is where the traditional product launch formula would kick in. So this started, as you can see, mid-August. So the whole campaign started mid-May, long runway. Now we start the traditional launch. And so these were very highly produced videos. Did any of you see the videos?
Yeah, they're awesome.
Thanks. And so we spent a lot of time on these. So I'm going to actually show you parts of the scripts in this next part because it's an important piece. But what I will say is that this was where I spent the majority of my time. So when we talk about the big rocks, I was talking to Ron at lunch about this. The big rocks for me were the launch videos, the sales letter, the webinar, and the course. That's where I invested all of my time. Now, this was version 1.0. Moving forward after this, there's a whole bunch of things that I want to continue to improve on. Our emails that went out were horrible. The guys on our team, like this, we had a brand new team. None of the people on our team had ever gone through a launch before. Now that they've gone through one, now I can tap into their talents and skills And so we're going to be able to take this up to a whole nother notch, tapping into their skills. But initially, these were the big rocks. This is, by the way, a little funny story. See this little guy up here? This little caterpillar? When we were filming that video in the woods, at the time, there was like an epidemic of these caterpillars everywhere. And literally, like, you'd be walking through the trail, and there'd be all these caterpillars, like, hanging. And so we were walking, like, with a stick to, like, get them out of the way. And we'd get a spot, and then we'd film. And we never noticed the caterpillars that were crawling all over me, like, during the actual videos. And so then afterwards, we noticed them, and Dan, my video producer, was like, should we go back and film? I'm like, dude, we can't go back and film that. We'll just leave it as a little Easter egg to see if anybody sees them. But you'll see them in that video. All the different scenes, there's like one crawling up me here, there's one crawling up me there, one coming around. They're everywhere. It was kind of funny. But again, these videos, they were very intentionally designed to appeal both to the left brain and the right brain, to appeal both to the head and to the heart. And I'm going to show you exactly how we did that. Phase 4 was now to create the desire to buy tribe. This is our typical open cart period. So I was busting my tail. I was doing webinars. I was doing Facebook Lives. I was doing a live cast that we organized. I was reaching out to any JVs. I was like pimping myself out, however I could help them. The whole bottom line was to close sales during this time. We had live chat. Whole team was on that. I was on that. We were doing all kinds of stuff. The sales letter, spent a lot of time designing that. Phase 5 is what I would call the wow phase. This is from the time that people begin experiencing the course. And we wanted to create a unique experience for people that they have not had going through any online course before. And I know this doesn't need to be said in this room, but I'll say it anyway. The fulfillment of your course or product or whatever you're selling is really like the pre-launch to whatever you want to sell next. And so think of it that way. The experience that people have consuming your product is like the pre-launch to whatever you want to sell next. And when you think of it that way, you begin thinking of all the little touches that you can add to enhance that experience. And what's happened is that you create a huge wow. And then I'll show you some of the things. I'll share with you some of the things that we've done inside the course to kind of amplify that. But those were the 5 phases. So phase number 1 was awareness of Stu. Thank you. Phase number 2 was awareness of membership sites. Phase number 3 was awareness of tribe. 4, desire for tribe. And number 5 was wow. Okay? So much longer runway. So this was, as I was saying, this was a completely different course layout and experience than people had before. Okay, so those are the 5 stages. Now I want to tell you about the number 1 needle mover. The balance of external versus internal. Head versus heart. External, I want you to think of it this way. The external problems and challenges that your market are experiencing are the things that they would go to Google and seek a solution for. So what would your market go to Google and type in? Because they're frustrated with what? They need a solution for what? Whatever they're going to Google and searching for, that's the external problem or challenge. That's most typically what we sell to, right? The internal problem or challenge is what keeps people up at night. When they're laying in bed and they can't sleep, what is it that's keeping them awake? So let me give you an example. When I made the decision to sell my software company 2 years ago, it was, by all means, a huge success. Multiple millions of dollars a year. I had amazing business partners. We had a great team, tens of thousands of customers. Everything was awesome. But what I realized was that for me to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, when Ryan talks about the legacy, that company was not the vehicle that was going to get me there. And so when I made the decision to sell, the things that kept me up at night, the internal dialogue that I had was, what if Wishlist is a one-hit wonder? What if I can't repeat my own success? What if nobody wants to do business with me now that I'm no longer associated with Wishlist? Am I putting my family at jeopardy by selling this company? These were all the things that were keeping me up at night. So you and I, we need to be intimately aware of the internal dialogue that's happening in our markets' minds. And the great thing is when you can give voice to the conversation that they're having in their heads, the connection that you have with them is like nothing you have ever experienced before when it comes to selling to people. And so here's how I do this. This is like in any scripting, in any, like in your videos, in your sales letter, it's like a dance. Because if you go too heavy on the external, you come off sounding like this person, right? And we've all seen the launches where somebody's in front of the camera and it's like, let me tell you how awesome I am. I'm awesome because of this reason and that reason, and there's 5 more reasons why I'm awesome, and here's why you should buy my product. Yeah, you just come off like, dude, get over yourself. But then, flip side, if you go too much on the internal, you feel amazing, but you don't buy. So it's this balance of the artist and the scientist getting into the middle. So let me show you how we do this. So this is the first part of my script for the very first video. So I'll just read it to you, and then we're going to go through. So the first part was, the promise of this video is simple. I'm about to make your business a lot more profitable, your life a lot more fun, and your contribution to the world a lot more significant. It's a bold statement, I know, but if you have an expertise or a message you want to share, or you've got an online following that you want to serve in a much bigger way, or you want more time to pursue creative projects without the financial stress of having to constantly hustle to keep your business afloat, stay with me, because this is for you. So let me show you the science part of this. I'm about to make your business a lot more profitable. Internal or external? External, right? You want to make more money. Your life a lot more fun, and your contribution to the world a lot more significant. Internal or external? Internal. See the dance? External, internal. Now this was like segmentation, if you will, but in the script itself. So we're addressing or hitting the markets that we want to go after. Let me show you the second part of the script. Hi, my name is Stu McLaren, blah, blah, blah. In this first video, I'm going to show you a new blueprint for your business, something that gives you the resources to reach more people while connecting with your audience in a deeper, more fulfilling way. You're going to see how to easily transform what you're already doing and turn it into a reliable, recurring revenue stream that gives you the means to make a real difference in the lives of those you care for, your family, your community, the world. So in this first part, in this first video, I'm going to give you a new blueprint for your business, something that gives you the resources to reach more people. External or internal? External. While connecting with your audience in a deeper, more fulfilling way. External or internal? Internal. See? External, internal. External, internal. It's like a dance. You're going to see how to easily transform what you're already doing and turn it into a reliable, recurring revenue stream. External. Thank you, Kathy. That gives you the means to make a real difference in the lives of those you care for, your family, your community, the world. Internal. See how it's that balance? If you go too heavy on the external, you come off sounding like a salesman. If you go too heavy on the internal, they feel good, but they're not going to do anything. It's that balance, constantly going back and forth. Now, the beauty about video is that you can also supplement this with incredible visuals that bring those statements to life. And those visuals can communicate more than you and I could ever communicate in words that we say on a screen. So this whole script gives you a baseline, and then the videos are the things that bring it to life. Now let's talk about stats, results, and geekery. So phase one, the awareness of Stu phase. These were the videos. Total of 424,665 views. Now remember, I had no audience when we started this phase. Facebook audience was 0. Okay? Phase 2, awareness of membership sites. These were all the case studies that we released. Total views, 775,505. So if you combine both of those together, that's over 1.2 million views before getting into the traditional launch. Now, for all the Facebook guys, that is one hell of a retargeting audience, which was very valuable for us. Phase 3, awareness of tribe. We had 45,000 opt-ins. We had 3,300 in a Facebook group. Now, the interesting thing about the Facebook group was I did not make it obvious or easy to get in. The Facebook group was a PS statement in the first email that people got when they opted in. So if they didn't read that first email and get to the bottom, they would never have known about the Facebook group. And so what was interesting was the Facebook group was very hyperactive of people that were very interested in what we were doing. And one of the things that I'll share with you from experience working in communities and membership sites is that if you're going to start a community, if you don't show up, then why would they show up? And this happened both before and after. So you want to be engaged in the community. And, you know, during a launch, it's easy to justify. Afterwards, it's harder to justify. But what I will share with you is that the relationships and the quality of that group will go sky high if you don't abandon it after a launch. Phase 3, 81% of the people who opted in for the video series viewed video 1. 55% viewed video 2, and 42% viewed video 3. Here's what I know from my partnership with Michael Hyatt. We did a whole bunch of experiments with him last year in 2015. We did 4 7-figure launches, one of them as an affiliate. So we sold over $1.2 million worth of Jeff's product launch formula. One of my biggest takeaways from last year was that the more pieces of a launch you have, the bigger the audience you will reach. But the big hook is that the more pieces of the launch somebody consumes, the higher the conversion rate will be. So what does that mean? So when Todd talked about like the PDF, that is a piece of the launch. And what was yours? It was like 3.8 times more likely to buy if they had consumed the 3.2%. So similarly, we discovered that like if somebody watched the videos, if somebody downloaded the PDF and somebody attended the webinar, they were significantly higher in terms of the conversion rate versus somebody who only consumed one of those pieces. So the whole goal in the launch is to get them to consume the launch materials. So these were our stats on the videos. How does that translate into sales? This is sales letter. 27% of the people who bought, their first entry point into the launch was through video 1. 12% of people who bought, their first entry point was from video 2, 21% from video 3. Then you had some other entry points down here, like 5% of our total buyers came from the webinar that you and I did.
Wow.
That was their first entry point into the webinar, or into the whole launch. 7% came from Michael Hyatt's, 3% came from other webinars. Isn't that fascinating? Where people are coming into the launch and at what point they're coming into it. Phase 4, 20% of the people that were in that Facebook group ended up buying the course. 20%! That's pretty ridiculous. and 58% of the people paid in full. 42% paid in payments. We had collected $2.2 million of the 3.35 by September 1st, by the end of the cart close. That's a very important stat. That's cash in the bank. That is being able to pay off affiliates and all that kind of stuff without having to wait for stuff. We're out of the refund period now, 8.9%. My goal next year is to cut that in half. We've got a whole bunch of ideas, and we'll just keep chopping away at that. For round one, I was pretty happy. I was pretty happy with the way things went. So, what moved you to buy? That was the question I asked all of the people in the course just last week. I said, when you were going through the launch, what was it that compelled you to buy? This was incredible. Not one single person, not one, mentioned membership sites, making more money, or any of the left brain things. You know what they mentioned? We love your Austin Powers chest hair. No, I'm just kidding. They said, I love the relationship that you have with your wife. They said, I love your kids, and I love the way that you interact with your kids. They said, I love what you're doing with the charity. This is that emotional movement that I was talking about on the onset. It's very difficult for you and I, if we want to move the masses, if we want to create a movement, we can't do that appealing solely to the logic, solely to the head. And my biggest takeaway from all of this is that, that dance between both the external and the internal, and appealing to both is what's ultimately going to help you and I sell the most. Listen, I am ridiculously excited and honored to be here. You know, I was asked at the break, Clint and I were talking about, Clint said, are you in any other masterminds? I said, dude, if I had my way, I'd be in a ton of masterminds. But I don't know if you guys experience this. Any parents in the room? Okay. The tension I feel in my life and in my business is I absolutely love being in these rooms. I love entrepreneurs. I love helping entrepreneurs because I believe that you and we're the ones that are going to make the difference in this world. Because there's no limits on what you and I can make. And the great part about that is we can make unlimited, obscene amounts of money, and then we're in a position where we can channel that to anything that we want. That's an amazing, amazing position to be in. You know, I just heard a story of this gentleman. He was a refugee from Israel. And he came to the United States, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, and he started the Greek yogurt company. Is it Oikos or something like that? Oikos? Okay, I don't know how the hell to say it, but he started that company. He's got over 6,000 employees. They're about to go public. And he brought all the employees together, and he is giving them each enough shares before they go public that when they go public, those shares are going to be worth over $100,000 for each employee. Amazing. It's like his staff and his employees are just bouncing off the walls. Imagine being in a position to be able to contribute to your staff and your team in that kind of a way. That's the awesome opportunity that we have. Imagine being able to contribute to your family in a very significant way, taking them on trips and giving them experiences that they would never normally have. That's the power that we have. Imagine being able to contribute in your community, in the people that you serve in a significant way, being able to give back. That's the power we have. Imagine being able to do that on a world scale. That's the power and the opportunity we have. So the tension I feel is that I love this room. I've been honored to be here. I've been taking copious notes. I'm so grateful to Ryan. But the tension is like, I would love to be in this environment 24/7, but I also have 2 amazing young kids at home. I got an amazing wife at home. And so the whole time I'm here, I also just want to get home, and I just want to be with them. And it's this constant tension of like, I love what we do, but I also am torn with being away from them. And so what I will wrap up with is that we are all in a position to have significant impact with the launches and the products and services that we sell. And I want to encourage you, if you want to multiply the impact that you're going to have with every promotion, to balance both the internal and the external. I want to encourage you to give yourself a longer runway. Most people quickly put out their promotional materials, and they get a good result, but not a fantastic result. You'll get a fantastic result if you give yourself a longer runway. Start thinking about the strategy way further out in advance. And the last thing I want to share with you is that it's good to be you. It's good to be us. There's a lot that we can do with our launches. There's a lot that we can do with the segmentation that we're learning. And it's only going to get better and better and better. And that's the value of this room. You know, you guys probably don't get a chance to hear it, but Ryan brags about you guys all the time. He's constantly bragging about how incredible you are, the results that you're getting, the impact that you're having. And it's important for you to know, because he's like a proud papa. You know, he's a great guy, and you're in a great spot. And I'm excited for all of you. So with that, I appreciate you. Thank you for your time, and hopefully you got something from it.
Bastard, you almost made me cry right. Yes, I said you bastard, you made me cry right there. Robin wasn't even here to see it, the fuck. We caught it on camera, Robin, just for you. So, man, that was awesome. That was so, so good. Who has a question for Stu? Bunch of them. Okay, so let's go Chad in the back, and then we'll go Jovan.
The question is about the Facebook group that you started. So you mentioned that you just had it in a PS of the first email, right? Got a great response, right? Over 3,000 in and 20% purchase. But how come you didn't promote the Facebook group any more than just that PS?
My initial thought was that I wanted people that were reading the email I wanted it as a way, almost like a reward, you know, of the people that were consuming the content. Will I change that next time around? Possibly, for sure. But yeah, we may rethink that and try. But here's what I don't want. I do want people to jump through a hoop before we open it up. Because I think it's really important. What I do know from community management and shaping culture is that you, just like hiring, you want to make sure the right people are in there, because the wrong people can be very damaging. And so I will be rethinking that with the team in terms of like other ways we can get people in through other hoops, you know. But that was the initial thought. So I just want to keep it simple in the beginning. We were juggling a lot of balls, and so we just kept it simple on the strategy on that.
Yeah, so on that same note, one of the big questions I have, I'd love, whatever comes to mind, what are the things that stand out to you that you would consider doing differently? Like the list of, all right, we're going to do this instead. So what are the things that come to mind there?
So we segmented on the front end of our launch.
Right.
We did nothing with it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the big rocks that I was focused on were the launch videos, the sales letter, the webinar, and the course. Yeah. And so the conversation that you and I had really sparked it, but we were so far down the road that trying to tack something on, it would have taken our focus away from executing. So that I'm going to execute on way better next time.
Yeah.
So definitely like the 3 parts, the bridge, the bonuses, and the testimonials.
Yeah.
Yep. So those are, we'll definitely do that. Email copy is one that I'm going to invest a lot more time in. So again, that was one of those situations where I was the plug. I was the roadblock, bottleneck. Yep. So the copy for that was just coming too late, and so that's something that that'll be improved next time around. One of the things that I learned a ton about was types of bonuses that we can create to really support people. So it's not so much on the front end of absolving objections to increase conversions, but more on the back end of helping people hit the ground running faster and easier. So there's a bunch of extra bonuses, surprise bonuses that we'll be doing just to increase the wow factor. Yeah, those are probably some big ones.
Let me ask you a question about your course, because yours and the Ask course in some ways are on like polar opposite ends of the spectrum, in the sense that the problem with our course is there's just too much there. Like that's one of the things that we're rebuilding. It's just too much. We're breaking Stu rule number 1, overwhelming people with just too much.
Yep.
And on the other hand, going through your course, I'm almost shocked. I mean, we looked at, and Ron said, like, he did a count of how many hours of video was in the course, and it was a lot less than we might have expected. Talk a little bit about that. What's the feedback been on that, if any at all?
So here's my general rule of thumb for content, okay? And this came, I started exploring this heavily after an experience that I had. So several years ago, when I had our software company, Wishlist, we had run tens of thousands of sales through a shopping cart called One Shopping Cart. And long story short, we decided to move to Infusionsoft, and it was not a light decision, because there was a lot of things in place, and it was going to take a long time. We finally committed to it, made the decision, and then we were all in. And so then we bought this course. It was $3,000, and it was everything about Infusionsoft, And it was from a guy by the name of Jermaine Griggs. I don't know if any of you know Jermaine, but the dude he's amazing. So we're pumped, we're excited, we dropped $3,000, we're all ready to go through this course. I'm like, sweet. So crack it open, get into module 1. I think there was 8 modules, and each module had between 10 to 12 lessons, okay? So I'm like super excited, I get in, like, okay, module 1, lesson 1, start it, 90 minutes long. I was like, whoa, 90 minutes for lesson 1. What happens in that moment?
You do the math problem.
I'm just like, sweet. I'm like, hopefully Tracy, my business partner, he'll get through this and give me the summary notes. Guess how much of that course we got through? 0.
Yeah.
0. Here's the thing. You'll hear me say this a million times over. More content does not create a better experience. Because people don't have the bandwidth to implement. It's not only the bandwidth to consume it, but it's the bandwidth to implement it. And if they don't have the bandwidth to even consume it, they're never going to implement, and they're never going to get the results. You know what one of my favorite books are? Jason Fried with Rework. Have you guys ever read that book, Rework?
Yes.
If you haven't, write it down. It's just an amazing book to experience as a reader. Why? Well, because each chapter is 2 to 3 pages. You feel like a champ when you're reading that book. You go to bed and you're like, bam, I just knocked out 5 chapters. I'm like, sweet. Versus you get into a book when there's like 20, 30 pages per chapter, you're like, down. It's the same principle. So my rule of thumb with content is that I want no more than 60 to 90 minutes per week if it's a modular course. Does that make sense? So if I'm delivering one module per week, I don't want the consumption time to be any more than 60 to 90 minutes. If it's more than that, you'll lose people. And so if you look at all of the lessons, if you go through all the modules, it is about 60 to 90 minutes broken down into 5, 10, 15-minute chunks. So I'm a big believer of making the consumption easy. And when it's easy, more people will be able to use it and implement it.
And with your structure, how many weeks of the 60 to 90 minutes, like in Tribe?
There's 5 modules, and we take a week off, an implementation week off. So it's a 6-week course, but there's 5 modules.
So is it week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then week 6 is implementation?
No.
Or?
Week 1, week 2,
Yeah.
week off,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5.
And is it dripped? One module per week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I should know this, but you set up with the whole access.
Yeah,
I didn't,
and you will have people that will say, okay, listen, I just want to unlock everything.
Yeah.
And guess what my response was?
Fuck you.
No. No.
Oh, that's the Todd Herman response.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, I was getting you guys confused. Sorry. Sorry.
No, it wasn't.
Is that external or internal?
It wasn't FU. No, it was no. And they would say, yeah, but like I'm a fast learner. Great. But I want you to take your time with the course material. Because most people, they're just going to gloss over it and they're just going to go straight to the module that they're looking to buy.
So you don't even have a fast track, like you
Nope.
can pay in advance, waive the refund period, and we'll give it,
Nope.
You don't do that at all. Interesting.
No. To me, it's all about controlling the experience.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Now that's just my personal preference.
No, totally. I think it's useful for all of us to learn from you on that. Great. Jovan, I think, had a question, and then I know we had Buck in the back, and then we'll go Clint and everybody, blah, blah, blah. All right, Jovan.
Thanks. Very inspiring. Thanks for sharing, Stu. My question is, how did you get all those video views, and were they hosted on Facebook or YouTube?
They were all hosted on Facebook, and we bought ads. So I definitely had a budget set aside for this. And that's how we jump-started it all, was buying ads and boosting it. So one of the other things that was really important was when we started to build that Facebook page, my brother-in-law, who's my business partner, basically put out a challenge for me. And he said, we need content to be able to market. So I want you to do a Facebook Live every single day. I was like, dude, like, limiting beliefs kick in. I can't do a Facebook Live every day. Because in my mind, I'm thinking like they're all like the high production Facebook Lives, right? And he's like, dude, I'm just telling you. He's like, you're really good at being able to teach in front of camera. Just grab your phone and just teach. And so would you like my 5-part framework that you can use basically at any point to create real easy content? No. Okay.
And that concludes the afternoon.
Todd can leave. Okay, so part 1, most people don't do this with content. Especially Facebook Lives, they just put any title, but you got to have a hook. So treat the title of your Facebook Live or piece of content like a headline. Part number 2 is I always have a story immediately after the opening of that video. Part number 3 is I always have my teaching points. And for me, I typically like to keep it to 1 to 3 teaching points for a 10 to 15-minute Facebook Live. Number 4, is a summary. So I summarize the teaching points that we just taught. And number 5 is a call to action. If you like this, go to such and such URL. Now, so when I'm getting ready to go, I can literally prepare for a Facebook Live like 5-10 minutes before I go live, because I think of the headline, I think of a story to match it up, frame up the teaching points, and then the other 2 are easy. Now, here's the thing. If you're ever stuck on a story, here's a little trick. The first email in my autoresponder, like when you go to stu.me, when you opt in, the first email at the bottom is a PS, and it says, just hit reply. Let me know your biggest question with you fill in the blank for your audience. Every single day, we have people hitting reply. So if I'm ever stuck for a piece of content, I just go back to those emails, and then I take one of the questions, I create a headline out of it, and then the story is, I just got this email from Ryan. And Ryan asks, and I just that's the whole story. You know, it gives it context, and then boom, you go into it. So it's really, really easy to frame up content. And so that was his challenge for me, was to create Facebook Live content every day. And so we did. And it just started that helped us create a lot of movement, engagement on that Facebook page. And we went from 0, now we're over 65,000. And I keep investing. So this is not one of those strategies where I invest and abandon. Invest and abandon. You see this all the time. People go heavy on their Facebook page during their launch, and then after it's like a ghost town. Like there's nothing. They're not saying anything. They're not doing anything. And what I am encouraging all of us to do is to maintain that relationship. It's like, you don't go into a relationship and you're all hot and heavy, and then you don't speak to them and expect that the relationship's going to be at the same level. You know what I mean? And this is where I think this is a huge opportunity for all of us. So we're after the launch. We closed months ago. I'm still, twice a week, I post Facebook Live on that Facebook page. I'm still engaged on that page. We're constantly posting content on there. So it's not one of those things where we start it and abandon it. My main page where these videos were launched was on my main Facebook page. Yeah, so facebook.com/Stu McLaren.
Great.
Yep.
I have Buck next in the back.
Hey, Stu, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. So I had a two-part question. One is, when did the outreach to partners start in that timeline? Mm-hmm. And then the second is, what was the were you posting Facebook Live to that 3,300 member group daily? And how often were you in there? I know you said show up, so I assume you're showing up every day, but how much of your time was that taking each day?
Okay, so let's talk about the partners. So I got a lot of experience with this, managing affiliate programs. When you are involving partners, you want to remember, just like Ryan talked about in the heat of the launch, it's like a whole different launch for them. Like think of it almost like two launches. There's like the launch for the public, and there's the launch for your partners. And so we start building anticipation for our partners. I was sending update videos for them back in March. And so I was giving them teasers of like, hey, we were out in the field. We were we were filming all of the launch videos. You're going to see those come to life soon. So we were giving them updates. So I gave them an update in March, April, May, June, and then two in July, and then we started getting more frequent like we normally would. So I was communicating with them way out in advance. And in terms of reaching out to them, I started that November of last year. So that's when the outreach started there. In terms of my involvement in the Facebook group, yeah, I was in there every day. But I also had a community manager, Sandra, who was phenomenal. And she was responding to comments, and what she would do every day is she would earmark posts that were important for me to respond to. So every day I would literally block off an hour, and I would just open up all the ones that she told me in different tabs, and then I would just go through and I'd respond. And so it was super easy that way. So I didn't have to comb through everything. She was doing the filtering, if you will, and then I was just being able to execute that way.
We'll do Kathy, I think, was next, and then Tracy, and then Mark, and then a couple more hands here. Todd's going to be.
Great presentation. Thanks so much. The 60 to 90 minutes per week to consume each lesson.
Yep.
Does that include
each module?
Each module.
That's all the content for that week.
Yeah.
All the content for that week.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I thought that meant.
Okay.
Does that include the time that they have to take to take action on whatever it is that you've taught them, or is that just the training portion?
Good question. No, it's just the training. Yeah. Cool.
Great. I guess Todd.
So a couple questions around, the one thing I'm going to be borrowing from what you did was I really like how you came into the group and you did your 10-minute answers in the Facebook group, or your 10 by 10 or something like that. I thought that was really smart. I like that for your group. If you want to talk and tell people what that is, if they don't know.
So I do a weekly Q&A call, which is pretty standard for a course. But I just, in that wow phase, my whole philosophy is I just want to love on my tribe. And I just knew that there were some people that were getting stuck on little things. And so I said, we were brainstorming on our team, and I just said, what can we do to help and support these people? And so they said, why don't you just do a Facebook Live and quickly answer a bunch of questions? So we came up with this idea of, we call it 10 and 10. And originally, it was supposed to be 10 and 10 and 10 at 10. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, I would answer 10 questions in 10 minutes. But it didn't work out that way because I always went longer than 10 minutes. And it just got to the point where I love doing it. I love helping people get past their blocks. And so every day since we started the course, I've been doing a Facebook Live for the group, answering questions. And so similar process, Sandra, the community tag, or they put a hashtag 10 and 10. She goes through, she selects 10, and every morning I open them all up in tabs, and then I'll do a 10 and 10 that way.
Tracy's next, and then
no. My question though for you was around the production value of the videos themselves. Like how long it kind of took you to, or just how that was constructed, and if you think looking back, things can get too overproduced, where people just, because that's my problem with my stuff was like, even though I didn't have all your B-roll stuff, is just this feeling and sense that there's a disconnect between being too good and too polished, I think, at times. So, any thoughts?
To me, it's not in terms of the production value, it's less about the production value and more about the storytelling. That's where, so you can have high production and crappy storytelling, and you're not going to have the same impact. But if you have high production and world-class storytelling, that's when things can really take off. And so for me, one of the ways that I think about it is like, I want to continue to attract world-class people who have massive audiences, well beyond what we're typically used to for these launches. Like one of the amazing things that I got from my partnership with Michael Hyatt was I got exposed to audiences that I didn't even know existed. We're talking people who we have never heard of, who have got millions and millions of followers, who are ridiculously engaged and loyal. And I had never heard of any of these people. And so part of my philosophy is that I want to create, this is where the artist side of me comes out. I want to create pieces of work that are beautiful, because I want my partners feeling so proud to be able to promote that content that it then attracts other people. So the filter I always run myself through is like, would Oprah promote this? Is it at that standard? Now, that may not be applicable for everybody in this room. That's just what I'm holding myself to, and will that ever happen? I don't know. But what I do know is that it attracts a whole lot of other people. And so we had all kinds of people that were wanting to jump in on the launch as a result of that. So I think the production side of it is more on the scripting, to be honest with you. And I spent an enormous amount of time on that. So, to give you some perspective, I spent 4 weeks writing those scripts. And it's not just writing them, but then sitting down with our video producer and saying, okay, how can we bring these to life? So the script is one thing, but then what do you do visually to match it? So if you saw any of the videos, I mean, there was all kinds of scenes. It wasn't like it was like a movie. Like we literally, if you saw our script, there was like the script on one side and then like scene by scene, like what visually we were going to show. Storyboard, yeah. So it was just like a movie. So that's where I think the heavy lifting goes into, and not so much like, you know, the cameras and that production side of it, but more of like the creative side of it.
Great. I think Tracy's next, and then I had Mark.
So back to your Facebook Lives on your main page with the once a day, you know, leading up.
Yep.
So I do a lot of Facebook Live. We have a weekly Facebook Live on our main page, and I'm on there like for an hour because people are asking questions, people show up, and like, how do you handle that? Like, to only keep it to 15 minutes, or are you just like not telling them you're going to be there, or what's
yeah, I
the
don't
deal?
want to be there. I just show up, and then people show up, and then what I do is I don't answer questions.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay.
So you got to remember. So there's two types of Facebook Lives I'm doing. Facebook Live on my main page, I don't answer questions. Facebook Live for my paid tribe members that I'm doing every day, that's all I'm doing. Okay. So yeah, because you'll get sucked into asking questions. The other big mistake, by the way, with Facebook Lives is that people don't follow this formula. So they'll start the Facebook Live, and they'll be like, hey guys, this is Stu. Oh, hey, there's Tracy. Hi, Tracy. And oh, hey, Ryan, good to see you. Oh, yeah, hey, Bill. Hey. Okay, 99% of the people that are going to watch your video are not showing up live. They're watching it afterwards. So when you're spending the first 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes saying, oh, hey, Tracy, oh, hey, they're like, gone. But when you start off with a hook and it's like a headline, and then boom, you go into a story, it's like for 99% of the people that are watching the Facebook Live, which is after the fact, now they're into it, and now they're consuming your content. That's an important piece.
I usually start like that, but I do like about like when I start seeing people come in, I'm just like, hey, tell me if you're here, and then I'll shut them off.
Yeah. So the only thing I do is after I've taught at the very end, I will say, all right, guys, I just want to give you a quick shout out. I want to say hello to everybody who's here, and I'll scroll up to the top, and I'll just say hello, but I'm not answering any questions. And I'll be like, all right, guys, that's a wrap for today. Thank you very much. Boom, off. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Did Lou, I think, had a question this side. We'll go to Mark with this microphone. Lou, did you have one, or you're good? Okay, Clint was first here, and then we'll go to Patty on this side. And then I'll go Mark and then Jen on this side.
You talked about wowing people, so the work really starts when they jump into the course. The 10 in 10, like I love that. I think that's great as well. What other things have you put in place to help keep people in and engaged and not refunding?
One of the things is that I think it's really important for us as course creators or product deliverers, whatever we want to call ourselves, that we celebrate both the big wins and the small wins just as equally. So, like, if you think about the buckets, okay? Let's say the bucket one is somebody who doesn't have a business. A big win for them is just getting clear on who their audience is. A big win for them would be starting a Facebook page. A big win for them would be doing their very first Facebook Live. That's a huge milestone for them, right? Somebody who's already clear on their market, they've got a successful business, a big win for them would be launching a membership site and doing 10 grand in the first month. You know, like we've got a whole bunch of them in Tribe that have done that. But what I have done equally is celebrate the wins of both at the same level. Does that make sense? And that, in a community, you want to create a culture of momentum. And so the way you do that is you identify what are the behaviors you want to see, and you cheerlead your mother trucking butt off about those things. So when it came to like doing homework, creating like one of the things in Tribe that I teach is the success path. So I'm cheerleading like a cheerleader would on people like, hey, post your success path. And when people do, I'm like, amazing job, you know, and I talk about it and make a big deal out of it and spend time on it. And when people would post like their their first avatar, when people would post whether their decision to go open or closed membership site, like all the little things, like I'm celebrating that stuff. So that's a huge one. There are other things that we are going to do next time around. Again, it was a bandwidth issue this time around. There was lots of things that were on our board that we just didn't get around to. I'm definitely going to have a graduation gift. That's a big one. I'm definitely going to, one things that we have done is meetups. So when I have gone to events, like I'm going to be doing one on Saturday morning while I'm here. The first one we did was in LA, and I expected there would be 10 to 15 people there. And this is no joke. Like, we had reserved a room in a restaurant, and I said to everybody, we'll meet in the hotel lobby. I come to the hotel lobby, there's over 50 people. And I was like, we can't go into the restaurant. I'm like, so what are we gonna do? So we literally like went up on like, it was like a balcony area. And I said, guys, I don't know what to do. Like, we don't have room for all this. Are you guys okay if we just kind of sit here in this corner? And everyone's like, yeah. And so we had like 50 of us sitting there, and then people walking by are like, what the hell's going on here? And so then like, by the end we had like over 70 people just like sitting there hanging out and doing stuff. And so what was I doing there? This is a big one, is I was helping people get through sticking points. So again, it comes back to the whole cheerleading thing, but like, per example, Nancy Fox in the group. She's, I would say, in the beginner category. One of the things that was tripping her up was just even the thought of doing a Facebook Live. And so I said to her there, this is in front of everybody, she brings it up, and I said, well, Nancy, why don't we just do one right now? And she's like, what? And I said, yeah, we'll just do one. We'll do a Facebook Live to my page. And she's like, okay. And I said, so you know the framework. So what's the hook? What do you teach? And she talks about growing your network and how to leverage your relationships. I said, great. So we came up with a hook. I said, okay, what's your story going to be? She had the story, teaching points, and boom. So I said, okay, here we go. I said, so Nancy, I'm going to the Facebook icon, and I'm like showing her, and she's like, got it. I'm like, okay, we're going to type in the title, the hook here. Got it? And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. This is really high production. Okay, Nancy? So I'm going to do it like this, and when it's time for you to speak, I'm going to go like that. She's like, okay. And I would literally like flip back and forth like that, and she did it. She crushed it. She was on top of the world after that. And not only was she on top of the world, but like other people in the group were vicariously living through her. So one of the things that I would just say is just love on your people. You know how to do this. You know how to love on them. And just look for ways to serve them and to be of value and to identify where they're getting stuck and help them break through it. And when you do, holy cow, these people are on fire. They just take off. But it just takes, it takes attention. So Ron, I think, was asking me at lunch. He said, how often are you going to do the course? And I'm going to do twice a year. I'll do an internal launch and a big JV launch. And he said, he asked about why don't you do rolling launches as an example? And I said, I don't have the bandwidth. Because when I'm in, I'm all in. And I need recovery time after that. And so for me, I could not give the personal attention that I'm giving if I were doing it all the time. So that's why, for me, I'm going to be doing it twice a year. Now, different people have different models. Some people want it more hands-free and they don't want to be as involved. I think that's the only difference there. Thank you. Yeah.
We got Mark, and then Patty.
Hello. First of all, Stu, thank you so much. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Mark.
My question was, you said during the consumption of the WOW period?
Yep.
2 weeks and then a week off? Why the week off?
Because there's a lot of material after that second week. So what I don't want people getting overwhelmed and not implementing. So there's a difference between people hearing it, thinking they've learned it, and implementing it. Case in point, one of the people that refunded, He was somebody that would consider himself in a more advanced bucket. Between us girls, he was not in a more advanced bucket. And so he said to me, he's like, you know, Stu, this stuff is great, but I'm a little more advanced for all of this stuff. And I said, no problem. Gave him a refund. I went to his website, because one of the things that I talk about is like, in your, is really going deep on that internal and external. So that was one of the big areas where we go deep. And he clearly hadn't done any work in that area. Because when you do that, your customer is your hero. So like on your headlines of your website and all that kind of stuff, it should all appeal to the external and internal problems or challenges that they're experiencing. So I go to his website and it's his name, comma, like a whole bunch of initials afterwards. And it was all about how awesome he was. Nobody gives a rat's ass about how awesome you are. It's all about like, what can you do for me? So that was just a clear indicator that he just hadn't done his homework. And so you will have those people that think they know, but they don't know until they actually do. And so I just want to give everybody the time to implement and not hear it, but not do anything with it. Yep.
We're going to do 2 more questions. So it's Patty and then Jen.
Hey, Stu, thanks so much. I really enjoyed it. I loved what you said about building awareness for yourself in phase 1. And you said that you're really focused on values, beliefs, and philosophies.
Yep.
So I have a 2-part question. One is, how did you hone it down, or how did you decide which ones you wanted to talk about, and would you change it in the future? And the second part is, you've built some awareness now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you change any of that, building awareness of Stu for the next launch?
Okay, great question. So, questions. First part was about like, how did I come to the values or philosophies that I spoke about? There was no strategy around that other than what fired me up. So, like, what was I passionate about? And so, for example, my team knows this because, like, if they ever want to get me riled, they just need to talk about Gary Vaynerchuk's hustle philosophy. And it's like kicking a beehive. Like, if they want to get me riled, they'll throw out a hustle comment, and it's like, boom, I light up, and I'm going. And so it's paying attention to what fires you up and what's important to you. And so I gave that a lot of thought, in terms of that. So the videos that I did one was about being an entrepreneur. I mean, I shared with you why I'm so passionate about being an entrepreneur. I mean, we are in the greatest position ever to change this world. I really firmly believe that. That was a whole video about that. Another one was about, the second one we released was hustle. Now you know how I'm pretty passionate about that one. Third one was about community. And I basically talked about, like, I'm ridiculously grateful for the people that I have in my life, and the relationships that I have. Like, see, I'm getting all. So I did one on community. I did one on money because I'm passionate about that. I did one on. I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank, but like, there were things that just moved me, and I think you just got to pay attention to that. The second part of your question was like, will I do anything differently? No. In fact, my plan is to release 1 or 2 of those videos every month. So I'm going to be investing a lot of money into creating those videos.
How much did you say you had invested before in phase 1? I think you might have said it, but I don't know if I caught it. On Facebook ads to run traffic to the Stu awareness videos?
I could tell you how much we spent in total over the whole campaign. I don't know offhand how much.
Was it tens of thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars?
Yeah, I think phase 1 was definitely around $10,000.
Okay.
Phase 2 was probably another 10 grand.
Yep.
And then phase 3, once we got into launch, I think we spent around 30,000. Yeah. So and then we've continued to spend.
Yeah.
I'm not slowing down. on that. I think it's important. So, yeah, I'm going to continue to do them. So, I'm always on the lookout for things that are firing me up, things that are that I want to speak about and share. And is there a direct? This video is going to make me this amount of money? No, to me, but there's the long tail of this. It's about moving people emotionally and connecting on a much deeper level.
Awesome. Jen, to bring us home.
Yes. Hello. Stu, I have to say that your back end, the whole fulfillment piece is gorgeous. To me, it's the most beautiful, user-friendly amazeballs back end I've seen ever. And I guess my question is around, did you use Wishlist Member? How did you customize? You have custom HTML? Like, what did you do to create this amaze? Because it's all the things that I ever said from a visionary perspective that I wanted in my membership, in my back end. And then when I saw yours, I go, he did it, but of course, because he's the Wishlist Member guy. So of course, I just was curious about that process and how your implementation team brought your vision to life.
Okay, disclaimer. My business partners and my team, their super strength is technology and design. So they have other highly successful software companies. They're operating on a whole different level. They're world class in that. Okay, so it's unfair in many situations because people look at what we did and ask, how can we do the same? 99% of people will not be able to do the same because they don't have that team. Okay, so that's the disclaimer. Now, what did we use? We used Wishlist. It's a highly customized theme and version of Wishlist. What's the good news? The good news is in January, we're going to be coming out with a solution that incorporates our theme. So it'll be made possible for others to be able to do the same. So that was just born from people in the course asking questions. And so we went back to the drawing board as a team and said, how can we make this easy for people? Yeah, so.
Awesome. Stu, my man, thank you so much.
Thank you.